out into the world. It's really nice to be back here at the info center, to be back with the crew here and to be able to do this again. We'll talk about what we've been up to in the interim, but gosh, before we get anything started, a kampai is in order.
Yeah,
I think.
sure. Absolutely.
Before anything else, what you got here? Are you searching for something there, Christopher?
I am.
Give me something.
You are. Oh, you are. Oh, gosh.
This is
Sebastian, you want to pass us a couple glasses from back over there? Gonna watch this. You might even get an explosion on camera here. Let's see what we get. We might start this off by just
with a bang.
with a bang. Let's go with a bang. There we are.
ありがと
Phew. There we are. Something to get you started there. Excellent.
う。いいな。
Excellent.
I'm
Excellent.
fueled up.
You fueled up? Everybody set?
Yeah.
Everybody set? Well, yeah. I guess to everyone here, thank you for making it back. And to everyone out there, thank you for your patience. Out there. We're still getting used to this camera thing.
Camera one, camera
Camera one, camera two. There we are. Hey, to everybody out there, thank you so much for waiting. Come by.
Come
Bye. Hey. Cheers. 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 Hey, there we are. There we are. It's on.
Yeah.
Sebastian, 乾杯。
Oh, that's special. That's lovely. So yeah, no,
Mhm.
thank you to everybody for your patience in the interim while we took a brief. Was that brief? I'm going to call it brief. I'm going to call it a brief hiatus over the past few months. Yeah, I guess just to kind of get everybody up to speed. I mean, a lot of people are probably wondering, where in the heck did you go and why? Why did you disappear off the face of the earth for what, about 3 months, 4 months or so? It's a handful of things. Nothing was wrong. There was no problem. But every now and then it's nice to kind of hit the pause button and step away and reflect and think a little bit, in the 3.5 years or so since we've been doing this, a lot has changed in the sake industry and shochu industry. Not the least because of how strange the last 2.5 years has been. A lot of changes have happened as a result of all of that strangeness. It has expedited things, it has changed things, it has shaken things up. But even irrespective of that, just a lot of things that were sort of already in motion have sort of evolved and taken place, and just a lot of changes had happened. And so in order to kind of wrap our minds around that, to stop and take back for a moment, to stop and take a step back for a moment and kind of reflect and think about that, and sort of the relationship between that and the show and sort of how we could contribute there. I thought a little time was in order. I can't speak for everyone, but I have a feeling everyone's lives here have changed a lot in the last 3.5 years or so. To keep anything going nonstop for 3 or 4 years straight is a task in and of itself. We're lucky in that this is a good one. This is a pretty good test to have. No complaints whatsoever. But demands on the lives of everyone here and the things everybody's involved in personally and professionally and all the changes that come along with that, to take a minute or two, I think, and step back and just sort of re-examine how best everybody can contribute and be involved, and just to kind of take a breather there. I think it's important, just to kind of give everybody that. Sake podcasting has changed a lot in the last 3 years or so. When we started doing this, as far as I am aware, we were, I think, the only ones doing a podcast dedicated to sake and shochu. For sure, the only ones, quite possibly the only ones doing something sake specific. In the interim, but now there's a handful of fantastic podcasts out there. Folks at Sake Revolution, Sake Deep Dive, Sake Unplugged, the Sugidama podcast,
Right.
Japan Distilled. You guys are tackling shochu and all that stuff. If I'm forgetting anyone, it's not because I don't love you. It's because I can hardly remember my own name.
Kampai Planet.
Kampai Planet. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I said, yeah, you start getting into the video component of things, a lot of
Yeah.
people have been putting a lot of really amazing things out into the world. And so, which is fantastic. That is a good thing for everyone. Everyone wins. And so in that context, then we also thought it made sense to kind of take a step back and go, what be us, these individuals here in this place doing this thing, what makes sense for us to be doing as well too. And so instead of just running full steam ahead, to actually stop and take a minute or two to ponder that and think about that, because there are a lot of people putting really great, meaningful work out into the world, and lots of education, lots of information, lots of entertainment out there. And so to kind of stop and think about that for a little minute and kind of restructure, we thought that was something we ought to consider. So that's something that you will probably see reflected in the coming months. I think everybody's, because of all those changes above, probably everyone's thoughts about the nature of the industry have changed a lot. And just to take a few months to kind of stop and step back and do that, I think benefits everyone. I think it'll benefit the show in the long term. We think that the potential for Sake on Air can hopefully contribute in ways that, of course, include a podcast, but maybe some other things as well. And so to stop and take a think about what that could look like and kind of structure things around that. Hopefully we'll have some things to share for you all in that regard. And then just to endlessly produce content nonstop. I don't know. It's to stop and pause every now and then is good. I mean, the guys at Stranger Things went off air for like 2-3 years, right? I mean,
yeah, and then the third season was pretty poor, really, wasn't it?
Right? I mean, gosh, I mean, the
lot of people.
Netflix's cash cow can take 2 years off. You know, we can get 2 or 3 months, right? I
Yep.
mean, that seems reasonable.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, you know, just having to just constantly be putting stuff out into the world. I just think it's healthy to stop every now and then, and so we did. But we haven't been doing nothing in that time in between.
Nope.
I don't think. I hope. I can't speak for everyone. But yeah, no, I say, you know, in that time we've been, you know, getting together and kind of talking about the things we ought to be doing, things we want to be doing, and engaging in the worlds of sake and shochu over those few months, and allowing that to sort of feed into the things that we want to be doing, want to be getting into in the coming months. But yeah, what's everybody been up to the past few months? What's been going on? What's the good word? How about you, brother?
Well, the first thing which I've been kind of mainly really involved with this 3 months is getting to grips with a new version of the sake course which I teach, WSET. Actually, one of my students is actually here in the room, just waving at me. So, I mean, from this semester, which is how we refer to it, we're actually teaching an upgraded version of WSET. New information has been added into the textbook, and there is now a quality assessment part of the tasting as well, which has taken a bit of a challenge to kind of wrap our heads around as educators. I have to say, I mean, it as always, and as anything to do with the creators behind this project are concerned, it's always very well executed. But there is a lot of new information to kind of get our heads around, new kind of ways of thinking about the tasting element of the course. I think the students are enjoying this new version. I'm enjoying teaching this new version. It's really motivated me to go out and do more study.
Yeah.
Because it's got a lot more detailed in certain parts of the course. About the starter, for example. We kind of touched upon the starter, but we didn't really go into a lot of detail about how each starter is made. And now it's all there in glorious detail, step by step. And there's a lot of stuff about microbes and stuff, which actually, for me, that was kind of a learning experience. I learned a new enzyme, which I didn't know existed. It's kind of cool. So that's been a lot of fun to do. And I also started, this was kind of just before the hiatus and kind of crossing into it, but I started working for a sake brewery in Yamagata Prefecture. We actually had them on the show. Honten, who make the brand Toko. The timing was right, and they approached me. They approached me about if I knew anyone who would be interested in working for a brewery And cut a long story short, I kind of,
Raise your hand.
yeah, yeah, and it kind of fits,
In that case.
in that case, and it fits to my schedule, and it's really interesting. It's really cool. They're very innovative. They're trying to do a lot of different things, particularly with a particular focus on sustainability and the SDGs, which is something that I've just found myself being involved with. I think it's a big thing in the world in general, but in my day job as well, kind of CSR related stuff. Not sake related.
Yeah,
I found myself getting into that world. It's very interesting, but it is very complex, and there is a lot of reading you have to do. And but I'm looking forward to that challenge.
Yeah, that's cool. That's a big theme for the world of sake and shochu as well too. Whether whether you use those magic letters of SDG or not, but like just the nature of sustainability and sort of what that looks like, and right, it's on everybody's mind, and it's going to be.
That would be the trend I would put forward, I think, that I've noticed over the 3 months. I don't know whether it's just over this 3 months, but I think more and more breweries are getting, are actually putting together initiatives now to actually tackle the problems that these SDGs raise. Not all of them, you don't have to cover all of them, but cover the ones that are relevant to their business. So it'd be exciting to see how that changes the shape of sake industry going forward.
Yeah, excellent. And who are you? I realize that we totally didn't introduce anybody.
Okay,
here.
right. Yeah.
Well, we'll do this as we go down the line.
We can start from the height. The big is in the name. Okay, so there are two Chris's on this team. I'm one of them. I'm the big version. I don't know if that's kind of obvious on the video right now. You're tall, but I get told I'm pretty tall walking around Japan. I'm Big Chris, and I've been working in the industry for about, I've lost track of time, probably about 14, 15 years. Originally, I worked in London, selling sake and marketing sake in London to restaurants in London. Then I came to Japan to learn more about the beverage. Things kind of developed in a way that I never expected, but I'm very, very fortunate, very privileged to have that happen. And that's kind of, I'd love to tell you more of my stories we go through future episodes. But
I think we got an old one on back in the backlog.
There you go.
It's got that on there.
You got me talking about all kinds of things, anything to do with sake, really, I think.
There we go.
Great to see you all again. Really looking forward to this new season of Sake on Air. And thank you as always for listening to us, because without you, of course, Sake on Air wouldn't exist.
I bet everyone just bowed back.
And I promise I won't look down on you. But the first thing I was told by my old boss before I came to Japan is, I want to give you a piece of advice. Okay, when you go to Japan, Japanese people, very humble people, don't look down on them. And I thought to myself, okay, that's going to be. He said it in Japanese. It was kind of literally in my mind. That's how it came out. I think he was literally talking about, being respectful and stuff. It's quite I don't think he realized the pun.
Or he totally did.
Well, he totally did, because he was quite a clever fellow. Shall I pass the baton to my colleague here?
Yeah,
great.
The other Chris, get on it.
Little Chris here, Christopher Pellegrini at your service. Ready and raring for season 3 of Sake on Air. Thank you for organizing this, and thank you for being here, everybody out there all around the world. The last couple of years have been a character building experience, to say the least. I don't know what to say. I think I might have dropped hints about starting a second alcohol related trade company in March of 2020, which was amazing timing to quit a full-time job, stable job at a university with healthcare and all of those things. So it's been exciting.
Healthcare.
Who needs healthcare, right?
It's a big thing.
Overrated.
So it's been exciting. I've learned a lot. Every day I learn about 3 or 4 new things that I am very, very bad at. And I learn constantly. Fortunately, I'm surrounded by very talented people who are passionate and inspiring, and that helps me get out of bed every day. And the story is that we're basically trying to get shochu and awamori to audiences further and further afield, and we're slowly having some success at that. But the shipping issues are still a thing. If you know anything about the logistical nightmare that the world is still suffering from, I get to deal with that every morning. It is not my favorite thing in the world. I think I have aged about 14 or 15 light years since 2020, and I've gained at least a few kilos. I'm a little squidgy around the edges now, and but hey, I'm better for it. Pack a harder punch now, and glad to be here. So thank you.
Yeah. Awesome. We'll have to do a deep dive into that one. Once you reach a point where you feel like you can like come up for air and you're like, I've got a handle on this, like it's good. We'll have to have a reflection episode one day.
Well, I need everybody out there to keep an eye on me, because I have to go home, and my team on the East Coast of the United States starts work in a couple of hours. So I have to restart my work day. So if you see me putting back too many glasses of this, you write in and Cindy will slap my face.
Cheer him on.
No cheering. You
Cheer him on.
slow it down,
Cheer
slow
him
it down, buddy. Yeah, you still got work to do. All right.
Very cool. Excellent. So
I'll pass it off to, is it Cindy or Sebastian?
Sebastian, please.
Okay.
Well, good to see you again, everyone. Or, I mean, I will see you later on. Maybe. What can I say? Last few years have been quite a challenge indeed. I mean, there are 4 pillars to my activity, and sake is very much at the center of them. One is consulting, the other one is tourism, the third one is education, and the fourth one is, I just forgot.
It's a very
What am I doing with my life?
basketball.
I mean, probably kind of, no, the fourth one is events.
Yeah.
And of course, 2 of them have been shaken hard by the last few years.
Yeah.
Events, and actually forgot about them.
Yeah.
And the second one is tourism, which has changed quite a bit.
Yeah.
So what happened over the last few years is I've beefed up the consulting part,
Yeah.
but it's not only about sake, so
Yeah.
less interesting for this show.
Yeah.
And I had to rethink my offer about tourism.
Yeah.
And whereas unfortunately we still don't get many visitors from overseas, there is a population here that I absolutely enjoy bringing or taking to various destinations in Japan. And I have developed a number of destinations where we go to visit sake breweries, but not only. Maybe adding a bit of a spiritual dimension to these travels. I guess it's sort of what the time calls for. Take a step back, become more spiritual, but not necessarily religious, and so on and so forth. So that's been my life. So you can still see me traveling all over the country, and that's the breaks. That's the part I enjoy most. When I don't do my consulting job.
I mean, it seems like you've been on the road quite a bit, though.
Yeah,
at least recently, like these last few months. Well, I mean, while we've been kind of in our downtime, it seems like you've been
it's a real respiration for me, and it's a real source of inspiration. There's no doubt that every time I come back to Tokyo, I just ask myself, why did I come back? And how much I've learned during that 2, 3, 4 days excursion to various parts of the country. Now about education, the Temple University course was actually pretty regular throughout the COVID period. But unfortunately, Le Cordon Bleu kind of interrupted their activity in Japan very early on. But there are plans, so maybe more for later.
Cool. So maybe you have something to share later. Excellent. Yeah, I guess for folks who don't know, you teach a sake course at Temple University here in Japan, right?
And Le Cordon Bleu, Japan.
Yeah, amazing. Oh, that's good to hear that.
Sake pairings.
Yeah, amazing. No, that's good to hear that the Cordon Bleu stuff is something that happened there. I'm excited. That's a great resource.
Yeah, I mean, I truly, sincerely think that institution has something unique to offer, which is the relation with food and cuisine. Obviously, mostly French food and gastronomy, but they have actually started a washoku course as well. So that dimension brings something to the sake education equation.
Yeah.
Which is something, for example, that
Yeah, I mean, I'm envious because I
you
would.
don't have, but you have
Yeah.
you bring a lot of other things, but
Yeah.
if there is an angle that I like to exploit is the food dimension or the gastronomy dimension.
But that's your wheelhouse, right? I mean, definitely.
No, that's cool. I know that both of you guys do like at least rather consistent formal education,
Yes.
right? And you said, I mean, WSET updated their program.
Yes.
And you probably can't share what's going on with Cordon Bleu at the moment, but has some of those changes, they've been sort of in response to the last couple of years? Has the nature in which you engaged with education changed at all?
Yeah, I mean, one dimension is more online.
Yeah.
More online content.
Yeah.
Because it allows you to be more flexible.
Yeah.
So that's, I mean, technically, definitely a strong impact.
Yeah.
I'd say, to my surprise, and also I'm very thankful as well. The school where I teach, they put in the right measures which were necessary at the time and are still necessary here in Tokyo. But we've only done a few classes online. They were really like sort of emergency classes because we had no other option. But with regards to the WST course itself, I wouldn't say that any of the recent changes are really a response to the pandemic necessarily. I think it's more something that was in the pipeline for a long time. And if anything, it would have happened a lot sooner, if not.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense.
I mean, but what has changed is what we tell our students as well.
That's true.
Because the crisis for sake has deepened during COVID.
Yeah.
And so I really feel all the more the urgency and the need to tell the stories and tell the culture and tell about all these amazing new products, new ideas that are taking shape in Japan and overseas about sake brewing.
Agreed. Yeah.
And so in that sense, it has impacted the content.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, all the changes that have come forth, like the latest information.
Yes,
or the latest things, right? Updates.
I was just doing a class about.
Yeah.
I was just doing a class about the state of the global sake industry yesterday, and you can't help but throw in a bit of information about how the sales have declined over this last 3 years. There's been quite a big dip. You do have to take that into account when looking at the overall kind of decline over the last 10 years. And obviously, working for this brewery now, every Monday morning in the sales meeting, I get to see these glorious figures, of how the industry is doing. I don't want to paint it into too much of a gloomy light. There are some positives, definitely, but there's no doubt about it. We can't understate the impact that the industry has had. Negative, should we say, as a result of this pandemic. And you will see a lot of breweries, I think, innovating to try and stay ahead of the decline, if you like.
It's probably all the changes that it's brought about. It's going to take some time before the effects of those actually resonate right in the market and start to show up. So wild. Cindy, what have you been up to? Aside from typing on this PC over here. For those who don't get it, who don't get to see Cindy all that often, Cindy is who you're communicating with 98.9% of the time. If you message us or any of that good stuff. But yeah, what have you been up to over these last couple months? It says because we have not been doing this, but you have been
doing everything.
Yeah, doing everything, right? Nothing has stopped. Nothing has stopped in your little world. So in relation to that, what have you been up to in relation to that or anything?
Yeah, I mean, I guess for one, I mean, you guys have been doing many things and I've been trying to kind of stalk you in the best way and communicate that outwards as much as I could. But it's sometimes a bit difficult, right? Because you guys do so many things. It's really like, wow, what's going on? And you cannot always share what you're doing as well. I'm kind of doing my best, but other than that, I'm still traveling quite a bit. Not as much as I used to. Kind of found a temporary home in Tochigi. So I'm trying to help local tourism to come to more local places. and also promote sake in Tochigi and Gunma and Iwate prefecture. So
Amazing.
doing many things, but yeah, that's kind of it as it is
Yeah.
for me anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How is it to have like an actual consistent place to return to?
Do you know? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I kind of
The
got
jury's still out.
Do you get fidgety? You know, like you want to move about. You don't like being there.
To be honest, in the 2 months that I lived in Utsunomiya, I probably just stayed there for 3 weeks, and I've been kind of all over anyway. So the traveling hasn't really stopped. It's just I go home somewhere and then I have to clean the house and
Yeah.
then I have to do the laundry, and, you know. But it's nice. No, it's nice to actually have time, and I have been doing many things about sake as well, but I just never had the time to really process it.
Yeah.
So I hope in the next 6 months, a lot of the things I've done over the last 2 years
Yeah.
are kind of surface and will be able to be shared,
Yeah.
you know, with everyone, because I do have kind of 2 years full of content.
Yeah.
Nobody knows of.
Yeah.
No, I'm excited. I'm excited to be somewhere and also closer here and kind of meet
Yeah.
up with you guys
Yeah.
a little bit more often.
Absolutely. Well, and you've been able to go to a lot of sake events and things like that. The sake events that were not happening for the last 2 years or whatever, over the last 6 months, there started to be a lot more, and you've been able to.
Yeah, they're all coming back, and it's a bit. I feel like I'm missing out when I'm not going. So
Yeah.
I think I'm a little bit overdoing it.
Yeah.
But it's just too much fun. It's so nice to see the breweries and everybody in the industry coming out, and also they're so excited to see us. You know, they're so excited to serve their sake. So it's been really a privilege over the last 2 months to go to Kyoto Sake Spring or to the JSS Sake Fair here and just discover lots of sake that we didn't have the chance to do for the last 2 years. So I'm really excited. I mean, you guys also mentioned it. I mean, it is coming back.
Yeah.
We're getting back to it, and we're getting lots of comments, and everybody's excited that this is happening as well. So
very cool. Very cool.
I also want to mention, if you do want to send us some questions, please do.
Yeah.
We are not showing up as Sake on Air, and I'm not going to say why.
Yeah.
But we're showing up as Let's Travel and Eat. So if Let's Travel and Eat answers.
We're undercover.
If Let's Travel and Eat answers,
incognito.
You can trustworthy source of information on the YouTube channel.
I can. Yeah. Okay. Good. Let's travel and eat for sure. Agreed.
So Justin,
Nice.
what about you?
Me? Oh my goodness. Yeah. I don't even know. It's been it's been kind of a trip, but it's been, I honestly hadn't traveled a lot for sake up until about the last few months, to be honest. Like, I had done so much traveling, even in the midst of all kind of the madness. I was doing quite a bit of traveling a while back anyway. But from like the beginning of the year up until probably about April, May or so, I actually wasn't doing a whole lot of sake related travel. Like, I had just kind of, I burnt out a little bit. Like, I was just going a lot, and I just kind of burnt out a little bit. And so I was just kind of staying put and reflecting a little bit more. However, everything kind of just kicked into high gear, and I don't know why. Like, I just decided to open the gates, and the floodgates opened. And so from about April or May, I've just been kind of on the road almost nonstop, and just been doing a lot of, and I guess this kind of ties in a little bit to what we want to do with the show going forward and things like that as well too. But I've been trying to, one thing that I've always wanted to do more of with the show, that we've been able to do a bit, and that I'm super obviously proud of and happy about, is to really go out and pick up just really interesting, thoughtful local voices that are in the world of sake or the periphery of sake that maybe wouldn't have the means to share their stories, or there's not actually somebody going out looking for it because they don't actually know that it's happening. It's not necessarily a dominant topic or theme, or they're doing something really thoughtful in the region that they're working in or something like that. And I feel like I said, there's all these other fantastic podcasts out there that are able to access a lot of other information, or are already providing fantastic education. And so one of the things that I've really that I'm kind of committing to in the coming months and in the year ahead is actually going out and just sort of picking out some of the conversations that I don't think would necessarily bubble to the surface had we not gone out there and gotten those. And so I've been kind of going around and visiting different breweries that are in sort of interesting positions where they're trying to make different new interesting things happen, or they have always been doing something really interesting and lovely and special, but for one reason or another, it just hasn't really bubbled to the surface, or it hasn't gotten the attention that I felt it deserved. I guess like one example is what we're sipping on right here. I brought shochu to the party this morning. I went out to visit Morinokura down in Fukuoka a couple of months ago. Actually, with you, it was right when you guys gentlemen were on too. Yeah, that was. If you look, yeah, there's some reels and stuff on our Instagram page. It goes out. But this is their sake kasu shochu. They only fire up this still 2 or 3 days a year. And I've been a fan of this brewery as a sake brewery for a long time. Personally, they make some of my absolute favorite shochu. This aside, like they've got some killer mugi shochu. They've got this stuff is killer, but
Stuff is wild.
this stuff is amazing.
It's amazing.
This stuff is amazing, and I love that they've committed to this. It's a sake kasu shochu, and you can, I don't know, this camera's probably too far away to see exactly what this still looks like. But if you get on our Instagram, there's some reels and some videos and stuff up there showing that in the process. They only fire it up. It's only rolling for about a half day, 2 or 3 times a year, and I happen to go down. I just happened to go with Stephen Lyman, your partner in crime.
Yep.
And it happened to be the day that we were doing that, that they were doing that. And so this is from 2004. I think the most recent release even out on the market is probably 2008, 2009. I think this may be a 2010 or so,
That's
but
a unicorn.
and it's a type of shochu that just people don't spend a lot of time on. And the dedication that they put into it is absolutely beautiful. And so I thought instead of me just showing you this bottle, it would make more sense for me to go out and sit down there, take some photos, take some videos, and interview them, because they've actually been making shochu, in particular this type of shochu, before they were ever even making sake. They were a shochu distillery first, and so to sit down and just have some of those conversations. So I won't talk a lot about this now, because there will be kind of an in-depth, with that, coming up in the coming months, but starting to trying to sort of gather some of those interesting conversations with people who are just doing I don't know, what I find to be noteworthy and honorable work in the world of brewing and distilling.
Well, I mean, as we speak to local people, the conversation relatively rapidly shifts to other topics than sake.
Yeah.
And that's an element of differentiation as well, compared to the content that we were putting.
Yeah, absolutely.
And as we speak about it, I'm gonna drink a little bit from it.
Please do. You need a different glass?
I watched it already.
Oh, no.
The aroma caught my attention, but
Right.
it's great on the palate as well. It's a rather unique flavor profile.
Thank you.
I can't put my finger on what I'm getting there. It takes a bit of time to process. I'm still working on
You're
it.
getting joy.
Getting joy. There you go.
Joy.
Taste
You're
some
getting
of that.
sir.
It's the one word that isn't in the lexicon. Taste.
Right.
Won't get very about
The sixth sense is
just
like,
give up. Apple pen. Okay, joy.
sweetness, saltiness, umami.
Yeah, it's got everything. It's
Joy.
really well rounded. Yeah.
Right?
And Morinokura, they're the brewery that make the Komagura brand. I actually came into contact with them very early on in my career, and I have fond memories of where they have this set of 2 sake. One is basically it's the same sake, so to speak. One you can enjoy kind of like room temperature, and one you can enjoy warm. And that's the first time I came into contact with the experience of enjoying sake at different temperatures. I was amazed. They just put like the sake in different glasses, and it was like the difference between vessel types and different temperatures. Really incredible brewery. I'm really happy that you got to visit them, and that'll be on my radar as well.
Right.
Yeah.
I said I brought a couple bottles of sake. We'll pass these around.
Yeah.
But I haven't noticed. So what we did, one of the things we did, we said, hey, if you got, a sake or shochu or 2 that's sitting around that's sort of indicative of how you've spent your time over the last couple of months, bring something along. And we didn't speak or coordinate in any sense of the word. And there's like a theme going
The
on.
cloudy day.
And I brought a Dobrodoku, and I'm not even really, I'm not really a huge fan of Dobrodoku. I'm probably it's going to grow on me, I think, perhaps thanks to Justin's tutelage. But yeah, it's weird, isn't it? I just got sent this. Can I tell you a little bit about this?
Yeah, shoot.
So I'm very lucky to do a bit of work translating for a brewer who actually was one of my students of WSET. It's Senjo Shuzo in Nagano Prefecture. Kuro Goichi-san is the CEO, and he came and took my course. Then he got in contact with me recently, and he said, we're doing this new brand, and we'd like you to help us put this into English to show to the world. And I really love this idea. It's basically the labels incorporate haiku into them.
Cool.
So they asked a local potter by the name of Waka Horigome, and she, they basically said to her, look, you can do whatever you want for the design. So she thought, well, if I've got that much freedom, what I've always wanted to do is actually incorporate images and haiku into the design. She does pottery, right? But she does these really interesting pottery of basically creatures from the region.
Okay.
Right. So she does like the famous creatures from Nagano Prefecture, from the Shinshu area, for example. I've never heard of this, but there's this bird called a rock. Now, I don't know how you pronounce this, so I apologize. Ptarmigan, I think. A rock ptarmigan. It's called the Thunderbird. How do you pronounce it? Ptarmigan. You don't pronounce it. I'm supposed to be able to, So a rock ptarmigan is basically, it's a grouse. But that really wouldn't do it justice. It's a very unique bird to Nagano Prefecture, and they call it the Thunderbird. That's how cool it is.
Amazing.
Right? And so they already had this Dobrodoku product before, which had the rock ptarmigan on the label. So what they decided to do was they came up, the potter came up with this idea, just kind of imagining what these creatures in Nagano Prefecture, what they would be doing on a starry night, on a night, and so the brand is called On a Night Like This. In Japanese, it's Konna Yoru ni. So it's basically on a night like this. And each one of these labels has kind of like a picture on it, which tells the story of a particular creature and what they're doing on that particular night, on this particular night in Nagano Prefecture, under the stars. And each one is a haiku. So to go through all the different stories would take too much time. But just to give you one example I really, really like. The potter had a friend who told her this story, that basically he was staying in this lodge somewhere in the near the mountains, near a forest. And they were playing guitar, just, basically drinking sake and having a good time. And they heard this deer's call come from the forest. And the guitar player, her friend's friend, said, oh, you know what, that deer call, it sounds like the cooing of guitar strings. And so she incorporated for the deer label. Did I bring the deer label with me? No, I didn't bring the deer label with me, but there is a deer label. And for the deer label, basically the story is of this friend's story of hearing this deer call and relating it to the cooing of guitar strings. So the haiku goes something like, and I have to translate this in English. Translating haiku is kind of, you feel like it's something you probably shouldn't do, but I was given a lot of freedom and said, just translate it however you think it should be translated. So, I thought, okay, how often do you get to translate a haiku?
Yeah.
So I had a proper go and I did the whole 7-5-7, try and keep to the rules. And so I came up with something like, a deer's cry in the forest, my guitar string coos, something like that, keeping within the rules of haiku. It's a lot of fun to do.
Yeah.
There are I think 5-6 in the series. It's quite a big series. And then we have this Dobrodoku as well. So there's a deer, there's a trout that kind of jump in the streams in Nagano. There's the woodpecker, which is part of the deer series. Then you have the rock ptarmigan. And then you have the moon. Actually, the moon is the odd one out. So this one is basically, the one I brought is basically just a full moon. So that's kind of the odd one out in the series.
So
there you go.
The Thunderbird is good.
It is. Okay, well, I'm going to try some myself. Maybe this converts me into Dobrodoku fan.
The Thunderbird is very good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, but it's, I just thought, it was funny that all of us brought something with some real viscosity.
Actually,
it.
I mean, I think I was on the Nigori episode, or at least listened to it.
Yeah.
And I realized that I was not drinking that much Nigori. So, I mean, Usu Nigori, yes, but Nigori or Doburoku, not that much.
Yeah.
And in the last few months, probably I started to drink more, including a great visit to a lagoon brewery in Niigata.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, today I brought I mean, it's not Doburoku, but it's definitely Nigori.
Yeah. I said, and it's funny that like even the word Doburoku has like come into the lexicon, like whereas, you know, if you took a sake course 5 years ago, they mentioned it briefly in the history and then you'd never hear from it again. Whereas now as it's like common in the lexicon, all of a sudden it's become like a vessel for bringing new types of sake to people and creating new types of business around sake, and it's just been.
And Justin, you've been involved in Doburoku promotion, so tell us a little bit.
Yeah, well,
because we got a question just now. Someone is actually asking if we can explain what Doburoku is. So this actually ties in very well.
That's a good question.
Here.
Yeah.
I'll jump in. Unless you want to. Unless you have actually.
Get on it. Get on it.
Okay.
Get on it.
I mean, very simply, it's sake which hasn't gone through the pressing or the filtration. Under the liquor tax law in Japan, sake must go through filtration or pressing, which means that the liquid must be separated from the solids in order for you to call that a seishu or a nihonshu, if you're going to use the GI, or a sake, right? Well, actually, technically, Doburoku could be a sake as well, couldn't it? So Doburoku is basically sake which hasn't been filtered or pressed. Not to be confused with nigori, which has been filtered or pressed. It's just that they use a coarse filter so that some of the solids go through with the liquid.
A badminton racket, if you will.
Yeah, but I want to hear your how you would introduce Doburoku.
Yeah, I said we'll have to do another episode on it and actually really focus on it, because it's what Doburoku is written on a whole lot of labels, but the type of Doburoku that's being made is entirely different from the definition of it and what people were making before. I mean, literally what it is, it was it was essentially homebrew, but it made using what was readily available. So quote unquote traditional, for lack of a better word, Doburoku could have had millet in it, it could have had other seeds in it, it could have had all kinds of stuff in it. And that's not the Doburoku that had been made for the last 20, 30, 40 years or whatever, that was made under certain laws and in certain categories. And then what's being made now that's being sold as Doburoku is going through processes and incorporating skill sets from the brewing and from modern sake brewing that is in no way indicative of the Doburoku that was being made before, but it's amazing now. So it's from a tax
I dived straight into the legal definition because I thought you would go into the history. I think you'd be better at doing.
So it's there's how you look at it as far as like a tax court category and how the industry looks at it. But then when you actually step back and say what actually is Doburoku, it's actually there is no real official definition with regards to like what that is.
I believe women would make Doburoku and sell it on the streets. That's something I heard.
I'm sure that was a thing. There were, farmers that would just make. It's been a part of people's lives for like forever and ever and ever in different capacities. And so we can do another thing on it. But it's just interesting that it is a word that was completely outside of the lexicon, more or less. Like you just wouldn't find a product with those words written on it at a retail store, whereas now it's.
But do people still understand what it is? That's the thing, isn't it? Right? And like having that on the word Doburoku on the label, do most people in Japan understand what it is they're actually buying?
They have a perception of what it is based on probably a very, very, very limited exposure to basically how it existed in the market for the last several decades, which was actually a really, really narrow version of what it actually used to be, and then what it actually is evolving into right now. So we'll have to do like more of a deep dive, but it's just really, really interesting. And it's interesting that something like that has become it's become empowering now. It's really become sort of a vessel for allowing people to get a lot of different sort of freedom in the world of brewing. So,
I think I don't know if you think it's the right thing to say, but there are a number of people who want to do new products, try new things.
Yeah.
And it's awfully difficult to get a Nihonshu brewing license.
That's correct.
And whereas it's actually quite easy to get a license and produce and sell Doboroku. So Doboroku is a way to express creativity under a different in the sake world.
Yeah, because there's a great example here in Tokyo of a brewery that when I first met them in 2014, they were, they would come to the sake shop where I was working and they would sell their Doboroku. They couldn't make sake yet. They didn't have a license to make sake. But yeah, for a good 4 years, that's all they could do, just make Doboroku. But they did a fantastic job. I mean, the Tokyo Port Brewery in Tokyo, I think make arguably some of the best Doboroku and some of the most interesting and innovative Doboroku in this part of Japan. And yeah, and the thing about Doboroku is it is quite easy to get hold of the license nowadays. But generally it is considered still to be, you definitely need that license, right? You can't, it's called home brewing.
We'll get into it on another episode.
Okay, all right.
We'll get into that.
Okay.
But it's just, but I think it's worth noting because it's just something like in Japan, just in general, not even Doboroku, but even Nigori or just these clouders type of sakes were for fewer and further between, whereas a lot of seasonal brews and things like that have more of a cloudy component to it. But now that you're starting to get more Doboroku, you're starting to get more types of Nigori, the lines between those things are starting to, from a consumer standpoint, are starting to blur. I'd say they get more cloudy, but that would be just a term. But it's the communication around not just Nigori or Doboroku, but I think just sake in general is actually going to get more confusing than it's going to get more
less filtered.
Yeah. Unclear.
About this, actually,
Right.
Yeah. And because people are also wondering, because it used to be illegal in Japan, right?
Yeah.
So
It still is. Yeah.
So maybe you want to elaborate a little bit how this is happening and how the licenses are being kind of.
So, and Justin can come in and can elaborate on this, but like my understanding is that kind of you need to have a certain prefectures in Japan, certain areas of certain prefectures in Japan are given special licenses based on their heritage or their culture. And then also you have museums and sort of like guest houses and things, which can also get special licenses. I think the trend of actually giving out Doboroku licenses like this easily to like small breweries that want to start up is a new thing. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm quite actually interested to.
Yeah.
It's always always puzzled me a little bit why.
Yeah, it was basically different regions were basically given licenses to where if it was something tied to some sort of tourism or something like that, you could create it in tax office terms Doboroku and sell that on site and make that available. And that would be sort of a destination sort of a thing that you could go and experience and do that. And so there was, like you said, it was farm stays and it was, small cafes or little places out in the countryside. And there's, I have to look again, but there's like 100 some regions, I think, that have that designation. What you're seeing a lot of now is they're actually brewing under a completely different license. It's not a Doboroku license, it's a wholly different license. And then they're making something under the guise of Doboroku because there is no term for it. And it's a lot of it is very different from what was being made in those other places. And then the other sort of twist in that is that the other law that made it easier for Nihonshu or sake they made it easier to get a license to produce sake specifically for export, which is the same as what Lagoon is doing here, which is exactly what they're doing is they are making sake. They are a certified member of the Japan Sake and Shochu Makers Association. And they make sake, but it's specifically for export. If you're going to be making sake, but you're not able to sell it domestically, gosh, it's too bad to sit and just be making stuff and send it off overseas and not be able to share with anybody. What else can you make? This is then under a different license, and they make stuff like this.
Oh, so they also have a sake line for selling for exporting, and although with all the Japanese on the label, it's obvious that this is for the domestic.
This is for the domestic
market.
market. Yeah.
I mean, basically, part of the mash is filtered, that becomes sake,
Yeah.
and the part that is not filtered
Very good, yeah.
becomes the
Like it's a very good way to reduce waste as well. There isn't really such a thing as waste in the sake industry, but perhaps all that leftover kasu can be avoided, all the leftover leaves can be
Yeah, I said there's some different challenges around that. I said, but we'll talk about it because it's obviously, I said, clearly it's a it's a thing. Like it's something worth exploring. So,
but just finally, I mean, yeah, I think most people wondering, like, is it, because the question was, is it legal to kind of make it? I mean, you can't.
it's still illegal to homebrew.
You can't. Yeah, it's not legal to homebrew.
Mhm.
I think a guy tried it, like, you know, like in the 90s, and they basically ended up sent him to prison. So yeah, it's still pretty. You know, the penalties for doing that are pretty severe.
It's still that is the way that it is. No, it is what it is. It is what it is.
It's probably something you guys need to make an episode about.
It probably is, which is what it means, the long and short of it. But
It does. And thanks for asking the question, because that's how we discover new seeds for new content.
yeah, right.
That's how we're going to do it from now on.
Right. There we are. There we are. I say, yeah, we got a few different. One thing we are going to start doing, we're going to kind of experiment with a few different kinds of show formats, different lengths, and sort of different themes and different formats. We're going to be doing kind of a short travel series coming up. We had a lot of people reach out to us during the break who were like, I haven't been able to come to Japan for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. I'm so excited to go back. I'm so excited to get into sake. Where can I go? What can I do? So we thought, gosh, maybe we can contribute there. We had a lot of people reach out to us and say that would be really, really helpful. So, you know, as we get back into sort of getting the main show going and start doing some other different formats, we're going to kind of get a travel series is what's going to come first as we kind of shift in there. So we're going to have focus on sort of different regions and different areas and give you some suggestions for what might be a good way to spend your time and energy. But I mean, that's just sort of one example of the types of things that we're going to try and share. But we're down to about the last 10-15 minutes or so. We should do some listener questions.
Yeah.
We have we have gotten a few questions in advance. We've gotten a few in the chat here. I'm going to start with a couple that we got in advance. There's one very important question that we got that needs to be addressed immediately. This is from Maya, and this is for Chris. How many vests do you have? What is your favorite? Please elaborate.
Thanks for your question, Maya. I know she's probably working right now, so she's not going to see this live, but I don't know how many vests I have, honestly, full disclosure. I think it's about a dozen or so. I have a rotation of about 5 that get used pretty frequently. I have a couple that are kind of so off the charts that I often put them on and then reconsider and then leave the house with something else on. One of them being my violently red vest that is built in the same way that I believe vests for combat are built.
Good.
And I'm going to have to wear it on one of these shows soon, now that I've said that.
Good.
So I'm going to say even dozen, and I wear about 4 or 5 of them regularly. Thank you for your important question.
So is this your celebration vest?
This
Because it's a special occasion, right?
This is a special occasion. I have to say, this is one of my longer torsoed vests, believe it or not. And this is one of my big problems. How do you make the regular rotation? Is you have to, I'm sure you have this problem every day of the week and twice on Sunday.
Yeah.
I would love it if somebody knows of a vest maker. I know I need to have them I need to not get them off the peg. I need to have them made for me. I don't do that yet. I don't make that kind of money. But I
buy more shochu.
I can
Buy more shochu. Get Chris some new vests.
Hashtag.
It's a company that I'm buying my vests from, or waistcoats, we call them in the UK.
Waistcoats.
From in the UK that will send to Japan. And they don't have a great selection, but they're all really, really long. I'm actually starting to get into your game a little bit now that I can actually find like these long waistcoats. I mean, I wouldn't touch a waistcoat before because I'd end up with it finishing around, you know, here.
That's right. Yep. I'm sure it's a bigger Nayami for you than it is for me. But anyways, thank you, Maya.
Great question.
Cool. Next one from Enrico. Maybe we'll go down the line. Quick, like 1-2 word answers.
Boom, boom, boom.
What is the trend for the next few years, and what producers are looking to expand overseas? If you were gonna super summarize that.
Jeez.
I think I'm going to jump in here and say all of them. I think
With
we're
regards
at-
to who's going to expand overseas?
Yeah, I think all of them. I think every single brewery in Japan is now looking overseas because, you know, at the end of the day, the government has set this massive target to achieve by 2025. Sake is a big part of that. To export more Japanese produce overseas, and sake is a big part of that. Yeah, I don't think there is a brewery in Japan that doesn't have overseas aspirations. Yeah.
Ambitions. Yeah. Got it. Sebastian.
Organic.
Yeah, for sure.
One of the trends.
For sure.
Assemblage or blending.
Blending. Yeah.
One of the trends you can see in new products.
Yeah.
That's two of them.
Cool. That works.
Yeah.
That works.
Show to an Awamori world, we're talking a lot of vintage product, I think, which is, yeah, there you go. That was one of the original vintage products. You'll see a lot more of that. Also, a lot more experimentation with various yeasts and more difficult to work with ingredients that are going to expand the flavor profile.
Cool. What do you think? What are you sitting on? Anything?
I kind of didn't listen. I'm sorry. I was working. I was working.
Fair enough.
No, really
Fair
enjoying your doboroku there.
I actually must say I love this because
They're all fantastic.
we have two, right? And we have the first one, which is very smooth. But this one, the Lagoon one, it's really chunky and chewy. And I kind of feel like I'm having a meal and I'm really enjoying it. So
And I haven't had dinner.
I haven't had dinner. So I'm kind of in my zone. But
Cool.
yeah, if you want to ask me, I can answer. Just tell me the question first. Oh.
Good. We're dialed in. We're dialed
Justin,
in.
what are your two?
Yeah.
two words?
So with the export, who is thinking export? I would say everyone is thinking about it. I wouldn't say everyone is going for it. There's a small handful that are still focused domestically. I think what's more interesting than what producers are, because the question was what producers are looking to expand overseas. What's more interesting is how are they looking to expand? Because it's maybe not necessarily just through export.
Yeah, maybe cooperation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's
huge.
kind of the more interesting conversation, actually. There's been some kind of interesting developments there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For example, we're just looking at was that Heiwa Shuzo, makers of Kid, they're supporting a brewery in Vietnam right now with technical support and advice and things like that. It's not their brewery, but that's in a certain way, they're going to learn a lot from that. And they are pretty ambitious in their movements. And so whatever they glean from that experience will be interesting to see what they do. I can guarantee you that's going to feed into something they're doing internationally at some point. So there's just been, so we'll see.
And Richard on the chat was just kind of saying export by can, cake, or frozen. And then there is the development of the super frozen, right, from Namobishi.
That's right. But realistically, I mean, the biggest problem with that is that you need to have importers that are able to actually actually store that product properly, because it needs to be as soon as you receive the product, it needs to be frozen the entire time. Right? As soon as you actually defrost that, you can't freeze it. Right. That's the biggest kind of problem with that product. But it is very interesting.
They should team up with Pfizer.
Yeah.
Send it with their.
Right?
There it is.
Share containers.
I'll give you that one, Kuji-san.
We all know that
you know this, right?
Right. They're going to need container partners.
Definitely share a container. But to answer the question, I think can. And I don't know if everyone's seen, but there's a big project going on at the moment, done by the fantastic, is it Sawada? Kenji is his first name? Sawada, we'll call him Sawada-san. He's doing this massive project, basically getting all these breweries together and making special canned sake. And the brewery that I work for as well has also released a lot of different canned products. The fact is that people realize that the most environmentally friendly container really is probably the aluminum can. Right? Things haven't really changed since the 80s and the 90s. Glass is going out, I think. Glass is on the way out, because it's a lot of energy, a lot of carbon dioxide into the air. Unless people recycle them. If people recycle them, that's a different story. But people are less likely to recycle glass than they are to recycle aluminum. That's right.
I mean, I think it's a dream to bring your jar to the brewery and fill it and bring it back home.
Yeah.
Or having the service to be able to do that.
Yeah. Interesting idea for a service.
Growler it up.
Right.
Yeah.
I saw there's a couple places here in Japan doing something. They've been trying to bring back the what they call like the kaioi tokuri, like that old concept where you'd actually bring your own tokuri. We got one sitting around here. I imagine one sitting around here somewhere.
Yeah.
Right, that you'd usually serve sake from, whereas it's a lot of you bring your own. You used to, bring it to the brewery or whatever. They'd fill you up and you take it. It was essentially the original growler.
That's right.
Right, but there's now you have cold chain distribution and stuff like that and all that. Now there's different breweries domestically that have set up things where they basically do refills and put special releases and you send the bottle back and have really cool bottles and there's stuff like that going on too.
And there is that special keg as well. I forget the name of it, but I think there are actually 3 different brands, 3 different companies doing it. But like this special keg that basically stops oxygen, from getting in, keeps the sake really fresh, and you can just send that overseas. So
we'll see. What else we got? I like this question actually from Mac.
Yeah, Mac. Kampai Planet.
Mr. Kampai Planet.
Yeah.
Again for little Chris. I like this question. How would you describe the taste of awamori? Delicious. Right? No, but I saw this question. I was like,
Good question.
Good question.
Very, very important question.
The challenge should be, can you describe awamori without using the word delicious?
That's right. In more than one word.
In more than one word.
So just like anything else, I think it's helpful to think about, because everything depends on everything. And there are so many different types of awamori. I don't know, Francois, which camera should I be looking at? Thank you. So there are so many different types of awamori. There's largely unaged awamori. There's clay pot aged awamori known as kusu, which has been aged for more than a few years. There's all these new yeast strains. Yes, everything's made largely from long grained rice, but so much variety. So you go to big families of, in the aroma world, you go to big families. So we can go to fruit, we can go to flowers, we can go to grain, we can go to sulfuric. The sulfuric class. There's all these different baskets or families of aromas. And I like to land on, for a lot of stuff, fruit and flower. There's so much of the there's a lot of melon, the flower, like olive flower or blossoms. Olive. Sometimes there's awamori that tastes a little bit like it's been aged alongside olive juice or something from an olive jar. There's a great salinity in some of these drinks. There's really impressive minerality. There's and everything in between. There are now there's Chugo Shuzo does stuff with a yeast isolated from a mango tree, and that has a crazy effect on the awamori. So it's really hard to say, but I stick to a lot of the same words that you would learn in Chris's class, Big Chris's class, in terms of starting with the group of aged, the group of fruit, the group of flowers, the group of grains or nuts, and you're working with a lot of the spectrum there. So that's how I would start anyway. But I'm going to go back to my original answer. Really
delicious.
Yeah.
For me, there's a lot of vanilla in there, isn't there? Did you mention that?
Yes. I mean, especially with aged awamori, there's a lot of vanilla that expresses itself after a number of years, depending on how it's aged. But
and it tastes Okinawa, doesn't it?
It is Okinawa in a glass.
Yeah. Pair it with some taco rice. Which is about as Okinawan as, I don't know, hamburger.
And that will do it for going on.
On that note.
No, I think we are kind of running low on time here, though. We should probably check out in the next couple minutes here.
What about this being our last question? This is a good question from Mr.
Which one? Yeah, you want to take that one?
What is
Sebastian?
the question?
So the question is, how is French rice wine production different from Nihonshu? There are, well, I think there are 2 projects that I can, well, not 2 projects, 2 breweries that I can comment on. One is Wakaze, the other one is Les Larmes du Levant. And the contrast is quite interesting. because Les Larmes du Levant, which is owned by a French person, is actually using Japanese rice and yeast and would not and kojikin and would not have been possible without the cooperation of a Japanese brewery. So, well, I mean, I would send our listeners to our archives, because we have an interview of Grégoire Boeuf in our Sake on Air archives. We didn't discuss production method really precisely, but I'd like to say that it's not that different from the Honshu, and the yeast and the water are French, though. I was thinking like kojikin is Japanese, but I think the yeast is French. Now, wakase is a different story, because the business is owned by a Japanese person. The toji is Japanese, but most of the ingredients are French, or actually all the ingredients are French. So that is probably more different from the Honshu than Les Larmes du Levant. Plus, of course, wakase is sake that is often infused with fruits or herbs. So in that sense, it's kind of a different category.
Totally different worlds going on over there. So, right.
And we have an interview with wakase, don't we? Going back I think we interviewed them the Aoyama.
Oh my goodness!
See?
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, you know, these are.
We did.
Yeah, this was.
What I want to say is wakase, like Lagoon Brewery,
Yeah.
and 5 other members are members of this new association, Craft Sake Association, which aim at expanding craft sake as a concept, and expanding the range of flavors, tastes, textures that you can experience in sake. Which is an interesting effort, I think.
Well, we'll have to do a whole episode on this. It's an interesting development, because I mean, and it's one thing that again, like sort of moving ahead, I mentioned that one thing we want to do is kind of double down on our access to a lot of local stories and things here that maybe other individuals aren't in a position to maybe access that information or get those voices on air. But then on the other side of the spectrum is I also feel like we have a responsibility to represent the industry, and the depth and breadth of the industry. And so in doing so, in order to give people a real proper perspective of the context in which all these things are happening. And so, things like that, I think it's definitely worthwhile to dig into.
The industry as it is today, right? As it is evolving, because it probably is in a more evolutionary state than it's ever been in its history, right?
Absolutely. Well, I said, and especially with all the madness of the last couple of years, there's been it's almost in with expedited a lot of things that people were thinking about, and it's thrown a lot of things in funny directions and motivated people to.
It's added a bit of urgency.
Absolutely.
It was always there. It was always the desire to be more innovative, and you've seen this with the younger brewers, the new blood of the brewing industry. They've been innovating for a long time, but then now you can see the entire industry as a whole is feeling the urgency of this. That the brewing industry is as always, on a bit of a precipice, and we don't want it to be like that, forever. Create a more stable industry, and looking overseas and craft sake is just one fantastic example of how sake can do that.
Yeah, absolutely. We are out of time, but I'll just keep doing these questions because
why not? Yeah.
We can.
Well, there was also a question that came in online. Sorry.
Okay, yeah.
This is going to go over, by the way.
It's okay if you hadn't noticed.
It's about Tohoku sake.
Tohoku sake, okay.
And kind of your favorite places or your favorite breweries within Tohoku. I know it's big, but I think you might.
It's easy for me. Oh no, hang on. Does that count as Tohoku?
I don't know.
No, it doesn't, does it? Oh, hang on. I have to think. I have to be careful to make sure the brewery I'm working for, is in there as well.
The brewery you're working for is absolutely in Tohoku. They're definitely in Tohoku.
Looking for a brewery in Yamagata. Fortunate enough to work.
That's as Tohoku as it gets.
That's as Tohoku as it gets. I'm fortunate enough to work for a brewery before that in Yamagata, Tatenokawa Shuzo. And I have been to Yamagata. Although I haven't actually seen a lot of it, I have to be honest. I've seen like the Shonai area now, and I've seen Yonezawa. Yonezawa is fantastic. I mean, we'll have to do a travel episode about Yonezawa. Yonezawa is absolutely amazing. And I was very fortunate to actually be able to visit there in the winter. And that was my first experience of a snowy Japan.
Yeah. And you have Ginza
Really does
Onsen,
snow.
and you have Sao. And
Yes.
Sao has the Yamagata like Japanese sake museum, which is really awesome, and they're super nice.
Closest now, I'll have to visit that.
Yeah, it's really, really great. And they speak English, so if you want to go, this is the place to go to.
So my answer is Yamagata, I think.
Yeah.
Any other?
It's really hard. There is such a diversity.
Or just anything that's got you excited at the
It's just spontaneous. Whatever
Like
pops
you've
up.
been recently?
You can change your answer next week. It's
No.
fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
What about Doboloku from Tonomi?
Yeah.
That is
That was the scene for the day. So.
Yeah, not to
Sorry, movie.
not
Arigato.
just a small preview, but there may or may not be an interview with Sasaki-san in the relatively near future. So we'll
Nice, or maybe not nice.
so yeah.
I mean, because not only the Doboloku is beautiful, but the story is just fantastic about how to revive an old rice varietal, which is very much related with the development of rice cultivation in Tohoku, and how to not only create a Doboloku product, but just insert it into a global, into a wider offer, which is just welcoming people and offering them great food and sake with it.
Yeah. I actually just recently wrote like a 3,000 word piece on Domoroku, so it's on Sake Times, which Sake Times, sadly I don't think they're publishing new stuff anymore. Actually,
No.
we'll have to. Which is really too bad. Because they were a really great source for information. But I think it was maybe one of the last things that went up on there before.
And so Tono is in Iwate.
Isn't Iwate? Yeah. Which is funny because Iwate, right? Nambu Toji, like that's full on Iwate, but there's actually the number of breweries is very, very small.
It is very small. Yeah. Some other regions. So
And they do Amazake as well, which is absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Genmai or Hakumai, or white rice or brown rice.
and beer, right?
And beer
region. I saw the wonderful work you did on the Tono beer website, we call it the home.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm not so into craft beer, but that even had me kind of, interested to learn more.
Beautiful.
That was really, really good.
Iwate sake, sure, great, just beautiful in general.
So next, Chris.
No, you took mine.
Your second.
Well, if you don't want to answer this, there's one more question, and I think you might like this because it could apply to Shochu or Awamori as well.
Okay.
Yeah, shoot.
Collaborations between different breweries, and I actually don't know if there's collaboration between distilleries. So anyone who wants to take that?
That's a good question.
There have been a few recently. Jikuya and Sagara have been collaborating. Komaki and Komasa have been collaborating. Just on single kind of one-off projects, or maybe they'll continue. I really don't have that information, but there is some collaboration. I think the collaboration that happens
And what do they look like, though? I mean, when they collaborate, what's the product looking like?
Well, for instance, and you have that in the Awamori World Tour.
This is kind of an example of a collaboration, I guess.
Yeah, where everybody, a bunch of distilleries put out their own version of show that doesn't hew to the normal Awamori expectations that I described before. The Komaki Komasa collaboration from a couple of years ago, for instance, involved Komaki shipping a bunch of their distillate to Komasa, them blending it there in whatever way they felt was best, and then Komasa doing the opposite. And they both put out a bottle they both did one at the same time. And they were both good, and they didn't tell anybody what was in it or what the ratios were, but you could kind of figure it out.
Yeah.
By smelling it, and every time I met one of those two Toji, I was trying to get him inebriated enough so that he would spill the beans. They never did, but I think I got pretty close with my guesses. So there is some collaboration. Most of the collaboration in the Shochu world and the Awamori world happens behind the scenes, where there are groups of distilleries that are friendly and they support each other. They share information. I don't know how much in terms of resources they share, but there is a collaboration of sorts, and hopefully that it expands quite a bit in the future, because they're going to need it for the internationalization of the industry, I think.
Yeah. Is it a new thing, or historically was it kind of, common for distilleries to collaborate with each other?
In the modern era, I can only speak to about the last 30 years is what I have decent, like, firsthand knowledge of. And I would say that it's a relatively recent thing for these types of projects to be happening. There was a very provincial nature to a lot of the thinking. I think that still exists to a certain extent to this day. I know it exists in other industries and around the world, especially in Japan. So I think it is relatively recent. And it's good, though. I think it's positive. It should be encouraged, and hopefully we see a lot more of it.
Very cool. Any other collaborations? Right.
Or collaborate.
But someone is mentioning Date 7 or Date 7. I don't know. I
Yeah.
can't speak English properly.
No.
So it is no, but it is Date exactly. It is the Miyagi one.
But
Date-
so
I
it's
feel
happening
it's
again.
Date 7.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think
Oh,
it is.
good.
Yeah, they're restarting this year.
Good.
But I don't know much more than that.
Yeah. I thought, it was, the last one was supposed to be the last one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is coming. Oh, that's cool.
It's like James Bond. I mean, you always have a new.
Yeah, right.
I'm not
Right.
sure who's involved.
Right. I guess Tohoku's Date 7. It's
Yeah.
X5 and Akita. It's
Yeah.
there's a number of those. Yeah, I don't know. I guess the question was about Tohoku, and I mean, Tohoku is, especially in around Tokyo, like Tohoku is just kind of got a pretty solid presence.
Yes.
Tohoku makes amazing sake.
Mm.
There's absolutely no doubt about that. But I'd like to think that it's the era of Western Japan sake is going to be on the rise again. Actually,
Mm.
it's not a matter of right or wrong or better or worse, but we always talk about a lot of the sake from Western Japan, like historically,
Yeah.
Fushimi or Nada or the Hyogo and like all those areas, or Nara, or those places.
Yeah.
We talk about them in a historical context, and whereas sake from a lot of the last like 20, 30 years, we look at Hokuriku or Tohoku and toward northern Japan, and a lot of it I think has to do with the influence in Tokyo, in the style of sake that they were making. But I'd like to think that we're going to see a pendulum swing to Western Japan again, because I think there's a lot of really special things in that on that side of the island as well too.
Interesting. I just like to fly the flag for Aomori Prefecture.
So.
It doesn't get very much attention, but it's a fantastic prefecture. If you're going to go to Aomori, go for the morning market, if nothing else.
I'm with you.
And Hachinohe.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
Oh, it's amazing.
100%.
They're just amazing breweries all over Aomori. And I never really, dived that deep into Aomori Prefecture. And I hope to do so a little bit more in the future as well.
Yeah. Very cool. They said, I guess, cool. How are we doing on time? Probably.
I have
about that.
another really good
We have
question
two
that
more
I'd like
questions.
to.
Only if it's a really good.
Yeah.
It's really
But we have
Okay.
two more questions to.
We
And
do
then I
actually
have another one.
questions
We
here.
might
Not a
have
third
to.
one.
We might have to say.
think we should.
Okay, real quick.
I think we should.
We've got
This is good.
three questions, 10 minutes.
Okay, this is the
Deal.
question.
Deal. Fair.
No more questions.
Happy
for me.
Valentine's Day is what?
Right. Okay.
Breweries. Listen up. Breweries making beer or gin.
Yes.
All of them.
Well, it feels like it feels
No,
like
it feels like
it.
it.
It feels that way. I think. Did it start with Number Vision?
No.
Or no? But they're certainly. I think they're one of the, because it's such a unique product. But yeah, I think generally breweries have had to find way. The point here is that due to the pandemic, breweries have had to find ways to use up the surplus of rice. There has been a surplus of rice because you can't not buy rice that you've promised to buy from farmers. And if you can't make the sake because the restaurants are not buying your sake, you have to find ways to use up this rice. And I think thanks to various developments around the world, probably the gin boom in the UK, I would have thought was a big influence. A lot of breweries have found that actually gin is a natural segue, from sake that allows you to quite easily use up that surplus of rice. It's quite a flexible category, so to speak. Of course, you have to get a different license to do it. But yeah, I don't honestly know how many breweries are doing it, but it seems to be on the rise for sure.
Yeah.
And whiskey as well, for that matter.
Yeah, short answer. Beer, listen to our beer episode. Beer and sake breweries have had a pretty close alignment for quite a long time. A lot of the most famous craft beer breweries in Japan were born from sake breweries. So I would say go back and listen to that, because Rai had lots of amazing insight into that one. That was really, really great. Gin and whiskey has probably a bit to do with the using up raw materials and things like that. Also, spirits are selling, and sake is not that it's not, but spirits are selling. And sake industry, actually, if you look back for a lot of history, the sake industry, or those running sake breweries, were also running a lot of other operations. Like the idea of having a sake brewery actually only doing sake is actually kind of a recent development more than anything. And so the idea of getting into sort of peripheral business is actually a pretty natural kind of trajectory, or historically pretty common. And so
might it just be better to say that the popularity of gin and whiskey in Japan is the reason why breweries are actually,
well, and internationally.
Yeah, and
a lot of them make this specifically for export. Yeah, you might have more insight on this than we do, but
everybody's making gin.
Everybody's making gin and whiskey now too. The only thing is people have to wait on, they have to sit on their whiskey for a little bit. So a lot of
why you make gin first,
right? Exactly. So it hasn't come to market yet, but a lot of them are doing both. So I've seen some places starting to do a vodka or do different things. Like yes, for sure. Two more questions. We got 8 minutes. We're good. Okay. Okay.
I like this question.
We got.
I really want to go to question number 6.
You want to do 6 first?
Yeah,
that's fine.
But I also see empty glasses. Would you guys like any of the sake that's in front of us here? Should we pass it down?
They're all fantastic.
We've been hoarding this.
We've got one for this.
It's all here for comments.
I just realized.
Addition gap here.
Should we pass it down? Got it. You would like this, no?
Yeah,
I don't blame you.
Just before we get into the more.
I am.
Yeah, get on it.
So I'm willing to really convert it to double.
Glass here for
some of this guy.
Really? These,
we have.
This,
You're right.
Yeah. I wasn't.
All right. So what question are we on? Just so that we
look at number 6.
Yeah. So number 6, I'll read out the question. So in the intro to Sake on Air, there is a snippet of Justin talking about how he got into sake, and he mentions soy sauce. I was wondering what the story is there, and if he can elaborate. And this question comes from the Sake Geek.
The Sake Geek. Thank you, the Sake Geek. So I can't remember. I feel like I talked about this. I feel like you interviewed me about this on the episodes when we went back and we did interviews with each of us sort of about our background. So if you go back into that, you'll probably get a much more in-depth answer. The short answer is that before working in sake, I worked with a lot of producers of a lot of products around Japan or surrounding food, a lot of agricultural products and a lot of brewed products, including miso and soy sauce and things like that. And the very in-depth and very personal relationships that I was able to build through that introduced me to a wider world of fermentation and a disposition, I guess, or a means of sort of just engaging with your life in your craft that very much communicated to me why it is I'm on this island. And then when I started digging into that in more detail, first it was actually a lot of soy sauce makers, and it was miso makers and places like that. And then I started getting into koji, and then through that I started exploring further. And as I tried to get closer and closer to the most, I guess, I don't know, core element of sort of what that is, and not just the actual growing of product, but then the actual fermentation and all the things that go along with that, and just sort of the craft and the disposition, and then sort of how that ties into the life of the brewer and the craftsman and the relationship to the agriculture and all those things. It resonated with me in a way that was significant.
I
And
mean,
so,
you mentioned something else then, which was it was good for your body.
yeah, and there's that.
Mm.
There's that too.
That you, I mean,
Yeah.
you had some
Yeah.
difficulties digesting
Yeah.
things, and just Japanese fermentation culture was
Yeah.
good for your body.
Absolutely.
Made you feel good,
Absolutely.
I think is the way that you put it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's that. And then there's, I guess, another thing that I had never experienced. And we talk about flavor and taste a lot in the context of taste. This is sweet, or this is
Right.
sour, or this is tangy, or this is whatever. And based on those parameters, we determine whether or not something is tasty or kind of foul or unpleasant or exceptional. It was the first time that I experienced a degree of, I don't even know how to explain it really very well in English, but it's like a degree of flavor experience that goes beyond the palate. I don't know how to explain it,
That
but
makes
it's like
sense. That makes sense to me.
the body, your body responds to it on a level that is almost more, and not even in terms of health, but it's like you actually taste something and you respond like physiologically in a way that like brings, I don't know, comfort, brings, I lack the vocabulary to explain it properly, but I had never experienced that in my life. And I experience it with great frequency in my life here, which is why I am still here. Still doing this. So
It's kind of like, and we did the interview with, about the shinkame.
Yeah.
And how that kind of makes you feel when, drinking shinkame is not just about the palate, and it's kind of how it makes you relax. You feel really relaxed when you drink it.
Yeah.
I think it's very similar to that, isn't it?
There's
sake out
something there.
that are definitely like that definitely go beyond the palate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the short story of it that I didn't explain all that well. But I hope that works for you, the Sake Geek. Last question. Like I said, we got a lot of shochu questions. How come there are so many lychee aroma shochu recently, and how are they made?
That is a very good question. There are a lot of them these days. They are made using various sweet potato varietals that may not be considered standard. They're used. They also employ the hard work of non-standard yeast strains, I guess is one way to put it, and different fermentation temperatures, a lot of different procedural tweaks. The goal being reach new audiences, play to the high ball game, and make it possible for younger people to go, oh, this is new. And that often is a key to getting it into the magazines and getting it on people's radars. So I think that's where a lot of this is coming from, and expect to see a whole lot more of it because everybody's playing around with it right now.
Yeah. It's weird. I mean, it's kind of something the sake industry has gone through too, right? It's like, let's use flower yeast, let's use these yeasts, let's use like something that just offers a very blatant, this is something different, and it's just kind of universally pleasant,
And there's probably the most famous one right now is Kokubu does a limited release. Kokubu Shuzo does a limited release every year, and they have one that tastes of banana cream. This is a sweet potato shochu. It's bananacream.com. Then they've got one that's minty. Where does that come from? And then the last one is lychee, and it's just it's bonkers. It's just really, really impressive.
Yeah.
Really hard to get your hands on, but they're going to have a lot of imitators. So it'll be, it's coming soon.
Yeah. I'm wondering if this, we actually got I'm wondering if this ties in. Another question from Maya. She goes, what's your guess on the next thing after fruit flavored new wave shochu? I'm guessing you're referring to fruit flavored new wave shochu.
That's what I'm,
right?
That's what I'm referring to.
Right. What happens when the fruit dries up? Dry fruit flavored shochu.
Flavored
aged.
shochu is the thing.
Aged.
The
fig.
I mean, there's so everybody's looking for a way to distinguish themselves like they're doing in every other industry. But I mean, the only thing I can't get my head around right now, there's nothing new coming from the emo world right now because there's a blight, and there was a blight last year. There's a blight this year. Nakamura Shuzojo, for instance, a good friend of mine, Shinya, declared a month or two ago that he's not selling any shochu this year. He's just won't be able to make enough. So I can't even get my head past that at the moment to think about what's after the fruity stuff.
Yeah. We'll cross that road when we come back, I guess,
basically
right?
that bridge is over the bend, I think.
Yeah. Cool. We're over time. We can do that because
we're not paying rent on YouTube.
Simple
Let
answer.
us not laugh at that joke. we need to wrap this one up.
Right, it's about that time. All right, so we're gonna check out. Thank you so much to all of our listeners, viewers today, for your patience as we took this little bit of time off. As I mentioned, there will be kind of a short travel series coming up over the next month and a half or so. So please do look forward to that, and then you will start to probably see some slightly different formats and things coming out there. Keep sending us your questions, your thoughts, your feelings. Let us know what you want for us to do and focus on, and we will try to deliver. That's what we got. That's it.
One last comment.
Party.
Last kanpai.
Party.
Party. All right.
Or combine it.
Hey, kanpai.
Pardon, KP.
Right?
Kanpai.
Kanpai. Hey.
What?
Nice.